I have always been a book lover, especially children's books, but I must admit to a misconceived notion that I held for way too long, and that is on the topic of picture books. While I always valued the idea of reading aloud to children, I viewed picture books as something for those early younger years, and then, well, they get passed along. Boy, was I wrong. It wasn't until recently that I had the light bulb moment that picture books are for everyone. Hello, I am Robin at Bookbound Mama. And if you are someone who has also viewed picture books as books for young children only, then this video is for you. I'm going to share 10 reasons that I believe that picture books are for every age and every stage of life. Picture books actually have amazingly rich vocabulary. And my example of this is in my 20s, I decided I wanted to relearn and expand on the 4 years of high school Spanish I had had. So I thought a great way to start doing this was to check out picture books from the library in Spanish. And as I started to flip through these books, I was amazed at how many words I did not know. Now, granted, I was never fluent in Spanish, but I had taken some and I had dabbled in relearning over the years. And when I asked a friend who fluently spoke Spanish and had studied Spanish, and she was also stumped by some of these words, it was my first window into the realization that picture books actually have amazing vocabulary. Not all of them, of course, and many of my favorite picture books don't have that component. But here's the thing about picture books. They were written to be read out loud by adults to children. So the vocabulary does not have to be watered down the same way it might be in early chapter books. Also, because picture books are so short in length, every single word has to matter. Each of those words have been carefully considered and chosen. So just for fun, at random, I opened up some of our picture books, and here's a list of some of the words that I found. Plea, beckon, clamber, enthralled, bellowed, trellis, acquaintance, glistening, nimbly, enamored, maestro, sentimental, lilt, bounded, astounding, superb, samovar, fiery, and yearning. Many of the words in picture books are SAT words. And children are inherently going to learn this vocabulary because they are looking at context clues in the picture book and they are hearing an adult pronounce the words and use them. So a great way actually to build on a child's vocabulary, once that child is reading and has been a reader for a number of years, return to the picture books because they will remember how these words sound. They will have context clues and visual cues and memories, and now they can go back and read these picture books with confidence, and they will know what these words mean and how to pronounce them. Picture books are short, so in the busyness of our lives or in school days, picture books are way more accessible to read than a novel simply because they are so short. I am super grateful to picture books because as I'm starting this channel and figuring out what I'm doing, I have these books that I love and that are so meaningful to me, but also that feels so much more doable than if I started this channel even talking about short chapter books. I love that picture books can offer this reading journey in such a compact, short amount of time. So you can read a whole picture book while you're in the library or in a bookstore. But wouldn't it be cool if we normalized the reading of picture books and you could find picture books in waiting areas, whether they're for adults or children, and in offices and in high school or college classrooms? Does adulthood really have to mean just reading magazine articles and newspapers? Picture books offer a shared point of reference. So because picture books are short, it's so much easier to read them with a group of students or as a family and quickly have this shared point of reference. Yes, I still think it's super rad to read chapter books together, but those can stretch out over a long period of time, whereas picture books are this quick shared experience and knowledge base within a handful of minutes sometimes. Also, because picture books are designed and geared towards young children, picture books are books that can offer connection across ages. So whereas a young child or even an older child might not read an adult chapter book, adults and young children can read and enjoy picture books. How cool is that? And speaking of a shared experience, picture books also invite people to gather close. So whether it's in a library or a classroom or at home as a family, the visual component of picture books just begs for people to come together. And for the solo reader, I think it's so special to snuggle up and be able to enjoy the pictures and the story of a picture book and go at whatever pace you want and really sit and notice the details of the pictures or see what's coming next. Picture books are actually a great foundation for new knowledge. So most people think of picture books as storybooks or fiction, but there are actually a lot of really incredible nonfiction picture books out there. I love that these are an accessible way to start learning about new topics. As a homeschool teacher, whenever we're learning something new, I get a stack of books from the library that are mostly picture books because it's a really quick way for us to gather together and to get an introduction to what we'll be talking about. Whereas a chapter book, which can have its own value, just takes longer. So these picture books are a quick way to get an introduction and to get excited about what we're going to be learning. There are picture books about historical events and biographies of people's lives and science and art and all the topics you can think of. There are beautiful nonfiction picture books for these. And I wish that as a classroom teacher, I had used this incredible resource. I taught middle school and it just didn't even occur to me to use picture books, but these would be such an amazing tool for any classroom, regardless of age. Seriously, I feel like it's such an underused resource, and I hope that more and more teachers catch on to these beautiful, amazing picture books and how valuable they can be in any classroom. And for those outside of educational settings, I think it's so cool to learn about something you haven't known about. I cannot even tell you how many times I've read picture books and learned so many new things or learned about so many people's lives that I never would have learned about. Maybe I wouldn't have invested my time in reading a novel about some of these subjects. But because it's a picture book, it's fast, and I suddenly know something I hadn't known before. And oftentimes it leads me into wanting to learn more about that topic or that historical time period. It's just this amazing entry point into learning more. I know it's been said about a lot of books, but picture books are definitely also mirrors and windows. If you haven't read picture books in a while, whew, there are so many topics that are covered. I feel like you can read a picture book about just about anything. And I love this idea of picture books as mirrors and windows. So it's so important for readers to be able to read a book, and in this case, picture books, and see themselves in that story, to recognize what a character is going through or recognize a place or time period, and to see a mirror of their lives. But it's also important for readers to have windows into what other people's experiences and lives are like. And while that might be out of some people's comfort zone to read a whole novel that's about a topic or way of life they're not familiar with, a picture book is a super quick way to get this window into someone else's life and what things might be like for them. And there's also all these visual cues to tap into the feelings and emotions and empathy of what life might be like for someone who's experiencing life differently than you are. Picture books have all the feels. Now, this isn't every picture book, and there are definitely some that seem to do this in sort of a contrived way. But when it's done well and it's in a way that resonates with you, wow. I have picture books bring me to tears all the time. And actually, it's often nonfiction picture books as opposed to fiction picture books. But these books can really get to the heart of things in such a masterful, beautiful way. It is pure magic. Picture books have a variety of art styles. So I love going to art museums or art galleries, and sometimes I wish we lived closer to some of those opportunities. But I look over at our bookshelf and we have this amazing variety of beautiful art inside these picture books. I love that this exposes me and my children to such a wide variety of styles. We can appreciate these different styles and talk about them. Picture books are even more than the beautiful stories they tell through words and pictures because you get to experience this visual journey. I always think it's interesting that writers get top billing for picture books. So that's how they're usually listed at the library, and that's usually how they're referenced. And I do appreciate knowing who the author is and who the illustrator is. I think that's important. But I also have loved when I see picture books and it will just say by so-and-so and so-and-so. And it doesn't designate one as the author or one as the illustrator because I think that they work together as a team to tell the story. And the illustrator is just as important in that storytelling as the author is. And I just love the incredible artwork that we get to see in these books. It's like having gorgeous art books on our shelves. I guess it kind of goes without saying, but picture books beg to be read out loud. And I think it's so important to continue to read to children out loud, even after they are reading to themselves. And sometimes lives are busy and it might be hard to invest in an ongoing chapter book. So why not read picture books, regardless of your child's age? And I think adults need to be read out loud to as well. I think there's something in human nature, that storytelling element, and it's so beautiful and wonderful to hear stories told out loud. So when my husband's reading a chapter book with the kids, I might not sit and listen through the journey of the chapter book. But if he's reading a picture book, then I'm much more likely to stay and snuggle in and listen to the story. So I love that the length and the accessibility of picture books invites this opportunity. Also, knowing how to read and being able to read out loud fluently, those are two different skills. So just because a child can read to themselves does not necessarily mean that they can read fluently out loud. So what a great opportunity if you have picture books on your shelf to invite the child to read out loud. It's something that feels very accessible because the stories are familiar and there are pictures. And oftentimes, like I said, those bigger vocabulary words are going to be a part of this child's memory with this book. So they are going to enter into reading this book out loud with confidence. And lastly, picture books are comforting. There's a simplicity and usually a familiarity about picture books. I think we live in a society that's always pushing for more and striving farther. Once children master a certain skill, they're ushered on to the next one. And I think this push for further and faster continues on into adulthood as well. I've seen parents push their kids into reading older kid chapter books so that they have bragging rights. And picture books don't have the same bragging rights. I've heard librarians and teachers and parents tell kids that they cannot read certain books because those books are below their level. With that mentality, I'd be in big trouble because I almost exclusively read children's books or middle grade books or picture books. I would hate being denied these books that are such a special part of my life simply because I can read adult novels. I think there's something so lovely and comforting about picture books. And in this world where everyone's striving for more and more, I think it's important to sometimes slow down and enjoy the things that we do know how to do. So not letting children go back and read books that are familiar to them and that they love and enjoy just seems like a shame. I think especially new readers need to go back and be able to read something very confidently and not always be pushing for more, because then they fall in love with reading, and that is the goal, right? And how wonderful picture books are, that they hold these memories of snuggles and of simple times. Wouldn't it be so wonderful if we could all just slow down and get our egos out of the way and just enjoy reading picture books? Now, granted, picture books, as with any kind of book or anything, there are going to be quality ones and ones that just aren't. And there are going to be picture books that might really just be for those younger, early days of childhood. And there will be picture books that might resonate with you and not with others. There are some well-loved picture books that I simply don't resonate with. And then I have some favorites that nobody's heard of that are very simple, but that mean so much to me. Picture books, the really good ones, are beautiful and powerful. And they are not just for non-readers or early readers, they are for all of us. So if, like me, you had this idea that picture books were only for young children, I highly recommend you go to a library or a bookstore and check out some picture books. I think we as a society need to discover and embrace these precious picture books that authors and illustrators have gifted us, not just for our children, but for all of us. If you are looking for some great picture books, I have talked about some of them on my channel, and I have a link to my website below. If this is something that interests you, please feel free to like or subscribe. I will be here next week to talk about some books for summer. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.